Well, good afternoon. I was given the assignment to talk about urgency, kind of a one-word title, so kind of an interesting subject, but it's a subject that I feel very interested in, and I'm a practicing veterinarian, and I feel like I've been on the front line of helping pigs do well, and most importantly, not die. I'd like to begin my presentation by talking about a journey that a pig has to make. Interestingly, in a very short amount of time, a baby pig has to transition from inside the womb, where he's attached to his mom, to outside the womb, where he's attached to a nipple. And if you think geographically, that's about a 3-inch difference maybe. But in that journey, which takes, let's call it 24 hours, okay? Only about 3 out of 4 pigs will successfully transition from the womb to the nipple. And really, when we talk about survival, it's the elephant in the room, because the vast majority of pigs that die in our industry die during this journey or as a result of doing the journey poorly. What is my data to support that? This has been repeated several times today. Average farms possibly lose 10% during birthing, another 15% maybe later on. I still say it's related somewhat to the first 24 hours. And so basically 3 out of every 4 pigs successfully survive the farrowing process. But yet at the same time, there is farms, I'll just call them world class, that are able to do 3% stillbirths, single-digit mortalities, and end up with 9 out of 10 pigs successfully making that journey. And I would make a case that in our industry, there's skeptics that maybe have problems believing that these farms exist, but there's also believers in this room that believe that these numbers are possible to get pigs to survive the journey at a 9 out of 10 rate. I happen to be a believer, and I think I've spent my 40-year career trying to talk people on farms into believing with me that we can do this successfully. So how do we accomplish this? I try to keep things simple, and I often talk about bulletproof pigs on the farm. And interestingly, it kind of dovetails into this conference, because if you produce a bulletproof pig, he can't be killed, okay? And so how do you do that within 24 hours? Well, you provide a stress-free birth. You get colostrum into him. You make sure he has a good family, a mother that loves him, and you have him in a home that's reasonable for his needs. So pretty darn simple. Born unstressed, get colostrum, have a good mother, and a good home. Really not rocket science, okay? So why does it fall apart? Well, this is the picture on the left is a picture I took. I walked into a farrowing room, and there was a sow that had just given birth. I think there was 23 or 24 pigs in there. And I thought, wow, what a mess. They were hungry, cold, and wet, and they were looking for something they didn't have. And I thought, gosh, you'd have to be a rocket scientist to figure this mess out, because the rest of the story was there was another 3 or 4 litters in that room with the same problem. And I thought, wow, what a problem. But then coming back to reality, I think about the picture on the right, okay? And that's a picture of a cow. You'll find them on the ranches of Nebraska, where the best ranches in the world are. And interestingly, you can take a 5-year-old child, put him in a side-by-side, go out and watch cows calve, and in a short amount of time, they'll be helping the parents, they'll be giving commentary on how well this process is going, because they know at a very early age that a baby has to be born on time. He can't get cold or he won't get up. He has to get hooked onto that teat that's there, and he has to get up belly full of colostrum. So really, is it that complicated if a 5-year-old child can actually be helpful in that process? So I'm going to make a case, which is fairly controversial maybe, but I would make a case that the strategy of saving babies is intuitive. You could hand a baby to almost anyone, and they would intuitively kind of know how to take care of that baby. I would also make a case that it's repetitive. If you work in a modern sow farm, you will attend thousands of births in a short amount of time, in a short 2 or 3 years. I understand the typical OB/GYN doctor attends less than 6,000 or 7,000 births in their entire career. So the caregivers in modern farms, let's give them a break. They've seen thousands of these births happen, and they understand, I think, what needs to be done. So obviously there's problems. What's the missing ingredient? And this I borrow from an author called John Cotter. He's written a lot of books on change management, and his kind of opening thing on change management is that there has to be a sense of urgency in making change or in taking care of things. And when you think about babies, it's all about urgency, and it has to be every baby. And so my definition here for having a sense or a feeling of urgency is that you have to recognize that pig care is time sensitive, it's individualized, and if you miss a step, somebody's going to die. And it probably won't be you, it'll probably be the pig. So the reality is, it's not the strategy that makes it successful. It's when strategy is combined with urgency, that's what results in 90% piglet survival in this journey that we call the first 24 hours. So, where does the urgency need to be, okay? And I've often talked about what I call the caring circle. Now, I have a different label on this, but if you look at the left-hand side, you'll see pigs there, okay? And they have a job. They take care of owners through profits, okay? And so owners get their needs met by the pigs, okay? The owner's jobs is then to use those profits to hire supervisors and managers and make good choices of who they hire. And then the managers take care of the caregivers, and the caregivers take care of the pigs. And I have been convinced for a number of years that everybody gets off the hook on this circle except the caregivers. We're always pounding on caregivers, and we don't talk about the other pieces of the circle that provides care to these pigs. Interestingly, the only entities in this circle that are doing a perfect job is the pigs, because everything they do is timely, and they know what their role is, and they will do it if we help them. So the question is, in this caring circle, do we have a circle of urgency where everyone is doing things on a timely basis and the important things? Or is it one of complacency where we hope the cow gives birth and we don't send the child out on a side-by-side to check? So we rely on hope rather than being intentional about this process we call birth. So let's break down this circle and let's just talk about a few responsibilities of different people in this circle. And this is not complete. This is just some things that I think about. I think owners, and I give owners a title of anyone that can write checks, okay? So if you have the ability to spend money, you're somewhat in ownership because you can fix problems or create solutions. And so you have the responsibility of removing facility obstacles, removing disease challenges. You have to hire the right people to take care of the people. It's your responsibility to have a 100% staffed farm. If the farm's not staffed, ultimately you are the bottom line for this not happening. I would also make a case, and I'll talk about this in a little bit, you are the one that probably can create extended care. I put that under your responsibility if you're an owner. What are managers responsible for? Well, they're responsible for caring for the people. This is the most difficult job in our industry. My heart goes out to managers because being a manager is a very, very difficult job. And if you don't believe that, try to run your local convenience store in your small town, and you'll find out how difficult it is to be a manager. My heart goes out to managers. They often don't understand what they need to do. Often they don't need to be trained, or they haven't been trained, and sometimes they don't get this right. I think across all industries, only about 30% of managers are successful. It's a very difficult job. Caregivers, what are their responsibilities? I'm not even going to give you their responsibilities. I'm just going to tell you that most caregivers come to your farms convinced that they would like to take care of babies, but at some point in time, they get demotivated. And so what demotivates caregivers? Well, when you have uncaring supervisors or managers, you have partial staffing. How would you like to work at a farm that's 50% staffed? I would quit in a heartbeat. Inadequate facilities, continued disease challenge, lack of 24/7 care. Why would I put that on there? When you show up in the morning and the farrowing house hasn't been attended overnight and there's disasters everywhere, that's very discouraging for caregivers. Lastly, but not last, would be just a lack of success. If you've been harped on for years and you've had the same old numbers, you get pretty demotivated. So, how do we get back to a circle of urgency? And I'm going to primarily talk about owners and supervisory people. How do we get motivated? Well, maybe we need a different peer group. Maybe we need to be compared to a world-class farm. One of the troubles with big systems is they only compare to themselves sometimes, and sometimes the whole system has a problem with having a single farm where home runs are created year after year. So that's one way to be in a better peer group, possibly. I think one of the most powerful things you might consider doing is doing an offsite visit. If you're a skeptic on whether these numbers can be created, maybe you need to do some offsite visits and get rejuvenated and reset expectations on what could happen. I think offsite visits are some of the most powerful things you can do if they're done correctly. Maybe you need to create a model farm that you throw away the checkbook and you say, no matter what happens, we're going to make that farm be a model for production numbers, no matter what it costs, just to figure out what it would take. Just a suggestion. You don't have to do the whole system, but let's have one farm that we can compare to. Possibly you need to bring in an outside consultant, and oftentimes we bring in outside consultants to bring us information, but I would make a case that maybe an outside consultant needs to be brought in to inspire the people that are making decisions that things could be better. So more around motivation and getting them back to being believers that you can achieve world-class results. Maybe the people in this room need to work a shift in a modern pig farm over the night where you're the only person there, and there's 10 to 20 sows giving birth, and you're responsible overnight all by yourself for fixing all of those messes, I think I would have a whole different level of urgency on what we need to do on our farm if we put ourselves in the shoes of the people that we expect to accomplish those tasks. I put this slide up here because I think somehow we need to get refocused and realize that this caregiver is not the problem. We are the problem. Somehow we need to empower caregivers. They can solve our problems. They know how to take care of babies. But when we don't trust them, we don't empower them, and we don't give them leads or managers, I consider leads managers, that take care of them, these people will lose their heart and they'll quit acting with urgency. Number one reason that caregivers leave farms, and I think you all know this, but is because they don't like their lead or their manager. And so we've got, these people don't need our instruction near as much as they need encouragement that what they're doing, they're part of a team, and especially important, I think, is their leads need to understand that whatever they do, they need to take care of these valuable people. How do you sustain urgency? I guess I'm just throwing out that it's just like losing weight. It's not one and done. It's a constant challenge. And so all of these things that I talked about, they have to be done on an ongoing basis. And unless they're done with great intensity, you can definitely lose the urgency in helping pigs survive and preventing these mortalities. So just in closing, I guess what I'd like to leave you with is that the number one thing I think some people are missing is believing that good numbers can result. And if you're a skeptic, you can't be helped until you change your belief system. And so I guess you got to self-evaluate whether you're a skeptic or a believer on this. I'm excited about where the modern sow is. When I started my career, we weaned 8 pigs, and now I go to farms that wean 14. It's just incredible. And these sows breed back, they milk. I am not afraid of the challenges, and I think we can take care of them if we put our heads together and trust people. So ultimately, it's about culture. Is it survival of the fittest? One of the problems is our weaning averages have gone up and up and up and up because genetics has helped us, but mortalities have went up also. And so we think we're doing well, but in reality, we've left a lot of babies behind. And the other culture, when Sarah spoke well to this, is have we left anybody behind unnecessarily? So that's my challenge to you, is that strategy's good, but we got to remember that it's about having a sense of urgency and realizing that it's the leaders of our industry that can fix the problems. The caregivers can't fix the problems. Only the leadership can. And I guess my challenge to you would be whatever role you have in this mortality thing, that you will assume leadership in that area. So thank you.